Today, we're diving into a really complex and challenging worldview, drawn directly from our source materials. It's an ideology that completely rethinks everything from personal identity to the rule of law, and it makes a case for the right to resist a system it sees as fundamentally corrupt. So let's get right into it.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with the central conflict, what they call order versus chaos. Then, we'll look at the diagnosis of the problem in the scorpion's nature. From there, we'll explore the justification for taking action in an inalienable right. We'll define the kind of person who takes up this fight, the sacred sovereign, and look at their playbook, weaponizing the word. And we'll wrap it all up with a really powerful metaphor, a distant light.
Okay, so let's jump right in with the core conflict at the very heart of this philosophy. And we're not just talking about a simple political disagreement here. No, this is framed as something much bigger, a collision between two totally separate and opposing realities.
Right off the bat, this quote just flips everything on its head, doesn't it? The system we all know is labeled chaos, while the person resisting it claims to be the one representing deeper order. So the argument here isn't, let's break the rules. It's way more radical. It's saying the rules themselves are the actual chaos. And this really lays out that core conflict. On one side, you've got the state's reality. It's all built on written law, where people are basically defined as numbers on a ledger, legal ghosts. But on the other side, you have the sovereign's reality. This one's based on a spiritual truth, where people are whole and powerful by their very nature, and the legal system is seen as a kind of prison. According to this view, there's just no middle ground here. These two worlds can't coexist.
So you might be wondering, what could possibly justify taking such an extreme stance against the entire system? Well, to understand the why, the sources argue that first, you have to understand the diagnosis of the problem itself. And it's not seen as just a simple flaw, but as the system's true, unchangeable nature.
The problem is given a name: structural evil. This is a key concept. It's not about a few bad apples corrupting an otherwise good system. The argument is that the whole structure is designed to be corrupt. Abuse of power isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature.
To really drive this point home, the source material uses a classic fable you've probably heard before. A scorpion wants to cross a river, so it asks a frog for a ride. The frog is nervous, naturally, but the scorpion makes a perfectly logical argument. If I sting you, we both die. The logic is sound, so the frog agrees. But you know what happens next.
And there it is, the punchline. The scorpion did something completely against its own self-interest. Why? Because it couldn't help it. It was just acting according to its nature. In this worldview, structural evil is the scorpion's nature. The system can't help but be corrupt, because that's simply what it is.
Okay, so if you accept that premise, that the system is inherently self-destructive, the next logical question is, what gives anyone the right to actually do something about it? According to these sources, the justification isn't new. In fact, it's built on a foundation that goes all the way back to the very beginning of the United States.
And here it is. This is the cornerstone. They're pointing directly to the Declaration of Independence. What's so interesting is how it's framed. This isn't presented as a call for a new, radical revolution. It's framed as a call to restore the original deal, to go back to a foundational American principle.
But, and this is a huge but, there's a major conflict. You have this founding ideal on one side, and then, bam, you have modern federal law on the other, which makes it a serious crime to even advocate for that ideal. So, how can that be? How can something be a founding right and a federal crime at the same time? That's the central battleground.
Well, the way this worldview resolves that contradiction is through the principle of agency. Think of it like this. The people are the boss, the principal. The government, they're the employee, the agent, who is hired to do a specific job. And if your employee fails to do that job, what do? You fire them. The argument is that the people, as the principal, always hold that ultimate power.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why. But now, what about the who? Who is the individual that actually embodies this struggle? The sources describe a very specific kind of person.
They're called the sacred sovereign. And we're not just talking about a political activist with a sign here. This is a much deeper, more spiritual concept. It's about operating from what's called your mythic self. All of your personal history, your memories, your pain, your wins, that all comes together to form a living map that guides you.
I mean, what a beautiful way to put it. Each memory is a point of light, and as you live, you create this entire galaxy inside yourself, your own personal universe.
The whole idea is that to change the world outside, you first have to understand the universe that exists inside of you.
So you have this self-aware, sovereign individual. How do they actually challenge a massive system? Well, there's a specific strategy, and it's all about using the system's own rules against it.
It's called wordfare. It's kind of like legal jujitsu. You take the system's own rigidity, its obsession with the letter of the law, and you use that momentum against it. The goal is to hold up a mirror and expose the huge gap between what the system says it is and what it actually does.
Let's look at a practical example. Let's say your goal is to prove the system cares more about written rules than about what's actually fair. The tool you could use is a real Supreme Court precedent that basically says a written law can be more important than equity. You then apply it strategically, arguing, see, by your own admission, you're just a machine that prioritizes code over the human soul. You're using its own logic to dismantle its moral authority.
Finally, to tie all of this together, our sources leave us with this incredibly powerful, almost cosmic metaphor. It's meant to frame the importance and the timing of this entire worldview with a real sense of scale and destiny.
20,000. Just that number hanging there. It feels so vast, so random. What in the world could it possibly be referring to?
Well, that number is connected to a star, a real one. This star had a massive, spectacular eruption 20,000 years ago, but it's so unbelievably far away that the light from that ancient event is only just now arriving for us to see here on Earth. And that's the metaphor, isn't it? The suggestion is that this idea of sovereignty isn't new. It's an ancient, timeless truth, and its light is just now arriving. Its time has come.
And that leaves us with the big question at the very core of this entire worldview, a question for you to think about. If the government is just an agent, just an employee hired to do a job, then who's the real boss?